Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to today's podcast. As you just heard, I'm Lee Hayes, and I want to bring you co-hosts who are going to answer the questions that you have as an emerging speaker. And one of the questions, one of the many forms of the same question I get is, do I need an agent? How do bureaus work? How do I get it? How do I get an agent? How do I get into a bureau? So I brought in an expert for you. Today we have Ben Anshutz, who is from Gotham, and he is an expert, right? He's been in this for years and years, and is going to help shed some light on the mysteries of what a bureau is, what they do, if you need one, and how do you get in there. So, hey Ben, how are you?
Hey Lee, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great. So it's been a couple years, right? We met, just so everybody knows, we met in New York City at a New York Speaker
Yep,
Association meeting, I believe, where we were
true.
right helping emerging speakers there. You know, people
Yeah,
were showcasing
co-panelists.
and co-panelists, right? Talking to people, helping them out. So here we are again, helping people out.
Never ends.
All right. So let's start with you. Let's start with you, Ben.
Yeah,
Tell us about your background. And I know you've been with the Bureau for a while, but you have a performance background
yeah,
before that. So give us your
I do.
story.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm with Gotham Artists. I've been with the company for 13 years now. Wow. And I'm the president of the entertainment division, so I deal a lot with like celebrity appearances, concerts, and entertainment performances. But additionally, I also do a ton as just like a kind of a speaker bureau agent, lecture agent, placing keynotes at business conferences, sales kickoffs, kind of you name it. So I really run the gamut as far as types of things that I see, have done, and the kind of people that I deal with. And then you're right. I'm also a performer myself. I've
Yeah.
been a musician my whole life. My mom's a piano teacher, been playing piano since I was 3 years old, and it's kind of what drew me to the world of shows and events, since I just loved being part of performances and wanted to be close to it to pay rent and make a living in this world, while I also took part in creating art myself, and now here we are.
Well, I'm a little jealous because I've always wanted to be able to play an instrument and
Never too
perform.
late.
Yeah, maybe one of these days. So, but I love that you can do that.
Yeah,
So, so I'd love to jump right in here and just talk about what is a bureau? Like, what does Gotham Artists do? As you said, I know you work with performers, you work with business speakers.
yeah,
What is the function of a bureau?
yeah. What are we even doing here? It's a great question. I it is honestly. Gotham as a bureau and as an agency operates mostly as like a what I'll call like a talent buyer, like a broker, connecting the dots between people that need to be together. We also exclusively represent some speakers, and that's definitely a part of what we do: speaker development, helping with presentation crafting, websites, promo marketing, kind of you name it. But a lot of it is just being like an ideas incubator, where companies come to us because they trust us to make a unbiased recommendation about what's going to make sense for their event, whether or not I represent them or not. Doesn't matter to me. I want the end client, the buyer, the event producer, to be like, wow, I didn't even think of this person, and I'm so glad that you brought them up to me. It hit all the points for audience. This was a home run. That's kind of the goal, right? And that's sort of the fun, creative aspect that gets me out of bed in the morning to keep doing this job for 13 years in a row. And then, the other kind of smaller part, which is also totally fine to do, it's not as quite as fun, is just basically being like an order taker where someone's like, hey, can you book me Magic Johnson? Totally. Here you go. Here's the fee. Here's all the stuff you have to do. Go nuts. Um, but yeah, I like the kind of, idea incubation kind of part of it. And when a client has like a budget and they don't know exactly what to do with it, that's kind of, I think, where I shine and where bureaus shine is they can turn you on to an idea that you wouldn't have come across on your own.
So the client is really the event producer versus the client being the speaker. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, kind of. It's sort of both because we have to make both people happy to have it be, good. Yes, we have to look out for the speaker, make sure that they're set up for success by the client, right? But, ultimately my business is built off of clients coming back to me year after year after year to book their conference with whoever the speaker might be versus me booking a single speaker 100 times, and kind of advancing their career, right? We do that for a small stable of people that we're passionate about, our exclusive roster. That is definitely like a part of our world. But for my own role specifically in the company, I'm much more of a, connector of the dots between speaker and event producer, kind of leaning as the like event people as my buyer, my main client, who I'm, concerned with.
Okay. And now I have so
Yeah.
many questions, but I want to start with you. You're
Yeah.
using the word exclusive. Would
Yeah.
you tell us the difference between what is an exclusive speaker versus a non-exclusive speaker? What does that mean in the
Yeah.
speaker world?
Totally. It comes up all the time. An exclusive speaker is someone where it's sort of like there's a single bureau or agency who's like whether you want to call it a gatekeeper, whether you want to call it a back office who handles offers, contracts, logistics, what have you. But meaning you have to go to, Gotham Artists to book so and so because they're exclusively represented by Gotham, right? Other bureaus can come to Gotham and co-broker that speaker. So you're not cut off from working with, any other bureau out there, but you have like a home base, right? You kind of have your, port, as it were, that sort of looks after you. A non-exclusive speaker is someone that, they just don't have that. They're all in-house. They do it all their own. They might have an assistant who manages their calendar and responds to people's emails. They might have a speaker manager who maybe, manages them plus a couple others, and all bureau agents sort of go to that management company to book the speaker kind of for their end client. That's the difference. And I think it's sort of a blurry line, honestly, Lee, between like an exclusive speaker with a bureau versus an exclusive speaker with a management company. And because that's probably what people are thinking. And I think the key is that the management company only deals with those speakers and that's it, right? That's all they care about. That's the whole world. A bureau like Gotham exclusively reps some speakers, and they also do that, what I'll call talent buying, speaker placement, putting the right speaker with the right event. And that's, kind of a big part of the business. Whereas a speaker management company doesn't do that. They, focus solely on kind of long-term growth of a particular individual keynote speaker.
Now, I love that definition because people always ask me, Lee, what do you do? I'm a manager, which for those of you watching video, over my shoulder, there are a few pictures of speakers. Like, that's it. That's all I deal with.
Yeah.
And when it's my people. And when I'm not dealing with them, what do? I call you, right?
Yeah, totally.
I've called you over the years and I've said, hey, I don't have the right speaker. My client wants to know whatever. So the nice thing is managers can form relationships with bureaus as well and say, I need a hand, right? We need to help this client. Who do you want?
Yeah.
So we, in other words, for those who are speakers, we all work together on our end too, right? Managers and bureaus work together to get speakers on stages. It's not, it's not so exclusive that you can't talk to one or the other, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. I think we need to get that idea out of people's heads where it's like, well, if I'm exclusive with somebody, that means nobody else. It's like, no. You just have one person that you sort of, run your business through, but it doesn't shut you off from seeing the world.
Yeah, now that's an important distinction because I've had, back when some of my speakers are like, Lee, I don't talk to anybody but you. And I say, no, it's okay. Yeah. Talk to everybody because that's good for all of us. It's all right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
All right. So now we're just going to keep digging here because people really need to understand how bureaus work. So how do you get paid? I think that's always sort of a mystery to some speakers is understanding how bureaus get paid.
Yeah, best question. I think there's two sort of main commission models that people should be aware of. There's the gross model and the net model. So for gross speakers, it's like they charge, let's just pick a number, 10 grand, right? And they offer any agent, 25% maybe to book them. So the speaker nets $7,500, right? And that means any agent out there quotes the exact same fee. Everyone quotes 10 grand. Everyone's trying to, smile their way to get the business and, win the buyer's affection so they get the offer. But ultimately, There's no difference to the buyer who you work with on a growth speaker. It just comes down to service, right? Because it's the same product, at the end of the day, same price, no matter what. And there's more transparency kind of in this model for the speaker and for the client, honestly. I would say most of the like keynote speakers that are in like the business world, innovation, disruption, you're kind of, speakers types. Most of the people I find operate off this gross model. I think it makes it kind of easier on all bureau agents. You don't have to worry about getting undercut by someone else, underquoting, or clients don't want to get ripped off and get quoted way too much for somebody or something like that. So I think it's very friendly. It's very nice kind of way to do it. And then there's the other one, the net model, which is a little bit more kind of like Wild West and a little bit more up to the discretion of the bureau agent about what to quote. This is how pretty much all, there's always exceptions to the rule, but like pretty much all celebrity type speakers and entertainers work in this way, where they're like, I don't care what you charge the client. I just know that I need to make blank dollars for my event. You literally do whatever you want. I don't care. Just make it happen for me. Right. And so then it's kind of up to the agent running this about like, okay, well, if I know the client has like a lot of money, I'll quote higher and try and make a bigger commission. Or if they don't, I'll give myself a haircut, just try to get the deal done and make up, 10% or less. Sometimes if you worry about competition, well, this other guy's going to quote, like 50 grand for this speaker who's 40 net. Maybe I'll quote 45 and try and save the client 5 grand and then win the business. So there's lots more of like moving pieces in sort of the net model. And it's really up to the speaker about how they want to do it, right? So it just kind of depends. I would say, it's probably friendlier for bureaus, and I like the transparency of kind of the gross model. So especially for speakers who might be listening to this, if you're wondering kind of what to do, I say go with the gross model. It's just kind of cleaner, it's easier. Then once you become like, Tony Robbins, then you can charge, $500,000 net to you and let any other bureau agent, go crazy and do whatever else they want. But, that's kind of like the main two ways that people structure deals.
So I love the explanation between the two. Thank you so much. And it's interesting. I've had speakers that have quoted both ways, right? Lee, I want to do this, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. But again, to speakers out there, if you go by the net model, you cannot get upset by what the bureau charges, because I've had that incident.
That's
right?
On you.
What do you mean they charge 45 and I only got 15 or whatever? I should have charged more. That's water under the bridge. You have to be comfortable with your fee. And accept it and let it go, because that's what you're saying when you're net, right? You can't suddenly come back 100%. And I changed my mind. So it's I've seen both.
You for sure got to pick one. And look, hopefully bureau agents, police themselves and are not going to get too crazy with like a quote, because it's bad karma, and you have to have your karma in good standing to make a living in this world for as long as you hope to. But I think you're absolutely right. And it's definitely something that people should, keep in mind when figuring out their kind of pricing models and how they structure it.
And the other thing is, not all bureaus will accept a net structure. It's not that they won't accept it. Because I deal with, several bureaus. But I've some of the smaller ones, this is usually a smaller bureau thing, that they'll say to me, what do you mean net? How am I supposed to calculate what gross is? So I've run across this more than once, that it's a math issue. So I will calculate. I say, well, what is the commission you want?
That's why we're in showbiz
for you. That is it. But so keep in mind, right, if you're dealing with a larger, more established bureau, or there's smaller ones popping up all the time, they will have a different, they can deal with different things in a different way. So
totally,
you need to go in understanding your numbers.
What you want to do. Yeah, exactly.
What you want to do. All right. Now, tell me about travel. How does travel work? Should people do buyouts? And if so, what have you seen in the industry? What's quote unquote normal? What do you see for different ranges?
Totally. $1,000,000% do travel buyouts, especially for airfare. You don't want to go there. You don't want to be chasing some speaker to get their flights and prices yo-yo all the time. Flat buyout for travel for flights every single time. Don't not do it. And when it comes to like hotel and local ground and stuff like that, I think people can go either way. I think if it's a little more legwork for you, but if you want to save a couple bucks, you can provide car service in the hotel yourself. If it's like a room block rate that you get, or you get some good deal with like a car service that does a good job. I always especially like providing local car service for the speakers provided by the event producers, because sometimes it kind of depends what the venue is, right? And like who the speaker is. But imagine that you're getting some, car service person that doesn't really know, maybe they just started, they moved to the area. They don't know where like loading dock H is at the convention center. You're
Right.
kind of driving around, where do we go? I was supposed to be there 15 minutes ago, but I keep getting turned around. Like you don't want to deal with that on your day of your event. You got 1,000 other things going wrong. Have a car service that you know exactly where they're going, they know what to do. You have more control that way, honestly, to make sure that nothing messes up. I would say definitely handle, local ground in the city yourself. You'll breathe easier. You'll also probably save a couple bucks, because anytime people do a buyout, most of the time they're padding it a little bit, because travel is expensive. I can't tell you how crazy hotels have gotten. Flights are even worse. Give them the money for the flight. That's totally worth not hassling and like taking the time out of your day to kind of track and make sure that it's done. But it can kind of go either way, I think, on hotel and ground and stuff like that.
All right, so I'm going to give my 2 cents. I love that you said 1,000,000% on a buyout.
Yeah.
So I had a speaker once who, now this is
Yeah.
pre-COVID. This is when travel was slightly easier and slightly less expensive. I used to quote 1,500 flat fee. I know many people charge
Yeah.
more now. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my one speaker who was always worried about, doing the best for the client, he said, Lee, I can't do this. The client said they want a breakdown of every expense. They're covering flight, food, taxi, all these things. I need you to break it down for them. First of all, shoot me now, right? Because you know how many little tiny
No thanks.
pieces there are.
Yeah.
But it's my good speaker, so I go,
Yeah.
sure, I would love
Sure.
to do this in detail.
Sounds fun.
Because
Yeah.
to save the client, now here's the key, right? To save the client money. So I quoted 1,500. I broke
Yeah.
down everything, and needless to say, he ate with people. I had to break out his food. He shared. We get
Wow.
through all this. The price came to $1,833.
Right.
So I go, here we went through all this effort, and it cost the client more than the buyout would have cost, and you were
Yeah.
doing it to point out to them how you were saving them money, and now they're upset.
Yeah.
I said, at
And now
least
they're
with a
upset.
buyout, right? They know what they're getting. There's no
Upfront.
question. They know up front. There are no surprises. No, because then, like, if you have a flight change, which happens a lot, speakers, you
Yep.
always need redundant flights.
Yep.
Now there's a change fee, and the client's going to go, should I,
Yep.
should I pay the change
Yeah.
fee? So
Yeah.
yes, I'm on board with that 1,000,000% buyout. Travel is complicated.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get caught up in the nickel and diming every little thing. Plus,
Yeah.
every if you work for a smaller event, they'll go, well, Lee, we looked up the flights and we found this one that leaves at midnight and goes through Chicago and then through
Yeah.
California
On
back to
Spirit
Atlanta
Airlines.
for
Yeah.
$10 less, right?
Yeah. You're
No.
like, cool. We're not doing that.
No,
These are humans that you're moving around, not
Yes.
robots.
Not
like,
robots.
They need to. Yeah.
They need to be
Yeah,
there on time. They need to be able to function. They're not going
and in
for the
good
cheapest one.
condition.
It's
Yeah,
gotta be good
exactly.
condition.
Yeah, you don't want them to show up all bedraggled, And honestly, I love your story about breaking down all the expenses, because it just goes to show too, is like, yes, we're always trying to look out for the bottom line and to save money, but also like, I don't want to live in a world where someone's asking me to get receipts for the speaker's dinner, and they're like, well, how many pieces of the shrimp cocktail did they have? Because that's going to
Right.
factor into like what the meals cost. It's like, guys, we're really missing the point. It's like, this is not what this is supposed to be about. So here's a number. It's reasonable. You're renting a whole convention center. Let's not get too caught up in an extra $200 this way or that way. Let's try to
Right.
make a good event together. You know what I mean? So that you hit it on the head with that example.
Excellent.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So now there's different kinds of travel. So a lot of my speakers fly quote unquote economy, right? When I say economy, the economy plus legroom, whatever.
Sure.
But they're
Yeah.
flying, I should say commercial. They're flying commercial. So usually, I don't know if this is what you see. I see 2,500 nowadays seems to be
Yeah.
the rate, and that covers, the flights, the overnight, all these things.
Yep.
But I know there are also speakers who only fly first class or only fly private or only fly certain things. What else are you seeing in the world of travel? And sort of what level of speaker can suddenly say, I'm chartering a plane? What are you seeing
First class
there?
only charter plane. Yeah. I think it's based off like the fee too. Once you get into paying a speaker like, over 150 grand, then I start to sometimes see charter jets come into play. And it's really like not even about them being bougie and a diva. Sometimes they're literally doing 300 dates a year and they
Right.
have to get between not weird locations, locations that don't have
Remote. Yeah,
an
remote locations. Sure.
remote locations. There you go. That's the better word. So like, and it's just like, well, if I go commercial, there's two connections. I'm going to make it there barely in time if there's no delays at all, which
Right.
is not going to happen. So it's like we have to charter a flight. It's the only way that we can make it happen, and that's expensive.
Right.
Even for like a short flight that's maybe like an hour, you're probably going to be into this plane for 25 grand, flying from LA to Vegas or something like that.
Right.
Maybe a
Right.
little bit
That's a
less, but
short
it's like
flight and it costs that. Yeah.
a lot. Yeah. And so, like, look, some of these heavy hitters, that's how they move and how they operate. Like especially celebrities, they almost don't go another way. But I'd say 2,500 bucks on the low end for a speaker that's maybe, grossing 25K or so, of travel. That's pretty normal. Maybe call it like 10% of the speaker fee is probably broken out as a travel budget, you know,
Okay.
maybe a little less, probably about right. If you're spending, 100 grand to get someone out there, you'll probably have 2 to 3 flights. At least one is first class, maybe two are business for their like associates and their handlers. You've got one hotel suite, 2 king rooms, black car service, in Origin and Event City. It's not crazy to have that be up to 10 grand for 3 people to come and do your event, plus the speaking fee. So if you needed like a rule of thumb that I'm just kind of making up now based on what I've seen, maybe about 10% of the speaker fee is probably around where you're budgeting for travel, plus or minus, unless you go private. And then it's kind of how far is this away? And, jet fuel costs like
Right. Right.
$9,000 per hour of flight time, plus the plane rental and pilots and all this other stuff.
All right. So now we've seen the full range. Now, most people, I
Yeah.
think, listening to this podcast are going to be on the lower end. But I
Yeah.
just wanted, right, but I wanted Ben to show that travel is not one fixed amount, right? It's very broad.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
I think, but clients will look at that and they want to know that you are doing what's reasonable for you. So yes, you're right. If you're a
Mhm.
$250,000 speaker, you can ask for different things than if you're a
Yeah.
$5,000 speaker,
Totally. Yeah.
right?
Or if you're flying to, from like the US to Singapore,
Right,
yeah, we're
right,
gonna need more than 2,500 bucks to get myself to Asia.
right.
So yeah.
So it's very okay. Now, travel fees, are they commissionable?
No, never.
Okay, so again, that just to clarify
Yeah.
for people who haven't been with an agency. So a
Yeah.
bureau is going to charge you or charge, I guess, charge the speaker a
Yeah.
percentage of the
Hmm.
fee, but the
Yeah.
travel fee is meant for travel, so that just goes to the
Yeah.
speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I should never say never because now I'm thinking of like one or two speakers where their entire fee is commissionable and it's including
They bundle
travel.
it, right? Yeah.
They bundle it, yes. So it's really like how you want to structure it. Most people, I would say, are like, hey, my fee is 27.5 plus hotel and ground, and I break out 2,500 bucks for air and Origin City ground, non-commissionable. Bureau agent, you commission 25% off the 25K. Done. Very standard way to kind of structure the deal.
Beautiful. All right, so
Yeah.
let's get into pricing here.
Okay.
Mostly, again, most listeners here are emerging speakers, but emerging to me can mean you're going for your first stage, or it could mean that you're really looking to grow now to the next stage. So how should speakers price themselves? How do you know what the value is? Like if you're talking to a client, how do you feel like what's reasonable for a speaker to charge? Like you said, celebrities
Hmm.
have a completely different structure, but for emerging speakers
Yeah.
who are
When you,
good but not celebrities,
yeah.
how do you know? What should they be charging?
How do you do it? That's such a good question. I think I'm always a big proponent of you can charge sort of what the market will bear.
Mhm.
And you have to understand that it's like, booking a speaker, and let's talk about non-celebrity speakers since that's, mostly kind of like
Mostly, yeah.
the audience so it's like you're sort of selling your services in the same way that an auction house sells a piece of art. It's kind of worth what someone will pay for it. And what you're doing
Thank you.
is creating, things for someone. You're an artist up there on stage for real. And so What you have to do though is, especially when you're starting out, I always tell people, look, do a gig for basically nothing to begin to build your reel and your references. Your speaker reel, people want to see you on stage, not interviews, not on, like honestly, something like this. If I were a speaker, I wouldn't be able to use this as like, here's my speaker reel for how I'm going to look on stage, right? Because it's like a podcast recording. You need to be like on a stage in front of an audience, kicking butt. Production looks great. The audience is oohing and awing, that moment, if you can capture it on video, is so valuable. So if I'm a speaker starting out, I am, bending over backwards to find a gig like that. If they want to pay me travel expenses and I go out of pocket for a videographer, I'm doing it, because that's how you begin, on this stone, you build your church. It's kind of like that. And so once you kind of get a few and you get good references, because this, industry is all about word of mouth marketing, which is, in my experience, the most powerful type, right? Another event planner tells their other event planner friend, oh, we just had so-and-so, they were so great. Book her, book him, whoever it happens to be. That is going to annihilate anyone's marketing email blast or how good your website looks or anything like that, as if someone vouches for you. So the more people that you can have deliver like a good experience to, that's a very long tail of a return on doing an event for next to nothing, right? But obviously we're here to make money. This is supposed to be a career. So I would say, like, starting out for the first little bit, you can also kind of quote yourself, but couch it in a way where it's like, look, I typically get between, 5 and 10K plus travel expenses, open to hearing what you guys, have, and something. Also, a little like negotiation trick. If you can just ask them, well, what do you typically allocate for your speakers? Or do you have a budget of what you're hoping? I can try to make it work for you and build you a program that'll make sense. And then that way, you don't set your price. They just tell you what they're willing to pay.
Right.
So if that works for you, great. All of a sudden, there's your quote. When someone tells you, oh, well, here's our speaker budget. Does this work for you? You're like, hopefully the answer is yes, and you get to do it. But that's sort of a way to discover, too, what your worth is, not by being like, what am I worth? Like, that's such a hard question to ponder for yourself, right? Like, we're also self-deprecating, like, I don't know, is this enough? Or the other side is you come out of the gate way too hot. People are gonna be like, okay, you're insane. No one's paying that. I can't take you seriously now. Goodbye. And you've kind of ruined your reputation by being outlandish with the ask. Like, of course you're worth it. But what will the market bear? What's your competition, right? Mm-hmm. Find out what someone would be like. I want to be like this person in 5 years. Reach out to them, be like, what were you charging 5 years ago? How did you start out? And try to mimic someone else. Because if you just try to make up your own number, it'll probably be a little too low, a little too high. It probably won't be exactly right. So either doing a little bit of market research on your, similar speakers or people you like to emulate, and or just kind of opening up to people, be like, look, I would, if they're asking you like, what do you charge? Be like, well, I don't have a set fee. It depends on the scope of work, when the event is, where it is, any kind of prep work. So if you let me know a budget, I can try to build a program that'll work for you. And that's a quote you can give to somebody, which doesn't include a number.
That is fantastic. I think you just threw so many gems out there for emerging speakers. And so I'm going to reiterate with you. Well, one is like a sliding scale, right? That you don't just have a hard, this is my number. And the other thing, which I love so much, I've never heard it before, find somebody you emulate and ask what they charged 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's beautiful because you're not where they are now.
You're not. You would like to be, your website can look all great, but it's like, you got to, like I said, these references have to stack up. And once you have, longer and longer client lists of people who'll be like, yep, so-and-so did a great job for me, then the market will speak. You'll get more inquiries. And then once you're overloaded, then you can up the price. Because, it's like,
you go up, right?
It's the supply and demand. There's only ever one of you. There's one speaker. If your demand is higher, then the price goes up. That's just it.
Basic economy 101, right? Supply and demand.
Worth saying, though. That. Yeah, indeed.
It is. Yeah. All right. Now, you talked about video. I actually got this question yesterday. Okay. How important is a sizzle reel versus uncut speaking reel?
Both. You got to have both. I would say you're leading with the sizzle reel. That's like the splash page on like your website or whatever. Don't make it longer than 2 minutes. It's got all the movie transitions and all the, fun kind of extra glitz and glam. But I literally have some clients who are like, do not send me a sizzle reel. I don't want it. They're all smoke and mirrors. I don't care. I would like to watch a 35-minute talk. Those are more rare. I would say most people want like a little bit of a taste. Maybe they watch a 5 to 10 minute video, not like the whole kind of, keynote. But maybe you have a sizzle reel. Maybe you then have the sizzle reel plus where it's like 5 to 10 minutes versus a 2-minute thing, a little bit more, lengthy pieces that you think are really good and buzzy, where you really captured kind of a moment. And then maybe upon request, you have the whole talk available. I wouldn't post the whole talk online everywhere. It's kind of like giving away the house for free too, right? You want to leave a little bit to the imagination about what it might be like. But if someone's like, hi, do you have a whole talk? And you're comfortable sharing a private link, hey, just for you, don't share it, kind of a thing. Check that out. I'll mention this too. I don't know if you were going to bring this up later, but we're talking about video. Yeah. Is a lot of speakers are making pitch videos for themselves on a client-by-client basis. Someone reaches out saying, hey, I'd love to consider you for the event. Like, what's your pricing? You can just tell them the pricing and do that little thing of like, well, if you have a budget, I'm willing to work within it, and if you want to, make them a 30-second little cameo style video where you're like, hey, so-and-so, say their name. Here's why I think I'm a good fit for your event. Yes, you can look at my website and hear the topics 1, 2, 3 that a lot of people do, but I might customize it for you in this way. And you kind of give them a little sample of a taste about how you might position yourself, and not just be like, well, you're going to get speech number 2 and you have 4 options. You want number 2? We'll do number 2. People want customization. They want it to be for them. So if you can take a little bit of time, and again, it doesn't have to be long, literally 30 seconds, fine. Introduce yourself, say their name, pleasure to be considered. Here's what I would do differently. Here's what I would customize and personalize, tailor my talk for your audience, and give them a few little, verbal bullet points, bang, bang, bang. And you can do that all day long. Do it from your phone, It's an easy thing to do. And I find it can tip the scales for the decision makers.
Fantastic advice. I think that is great, because you need to, especially as an emerging speaker, to do something extra, to do something
You got to go extra.
If you're not one of the Shark Tank guys who get to speak all the time, it's because they're known. If you're not known, something extra.
You got to prove. Totally. Do it.
Okay, so now here's the big question I get. Do I need an agent? And what? So let's start with that one. Does an emerging speaker need an agent? And why or why not would they? What would they get out of having an agent or not having an agent? And then, of course, the next question is going to be, and how do they get in a bureau if that is the best thing for them?
Yeah.
And of course, that's also going to roll into, does a speaker need an agent? How do they get in there? Sorry, I'm throwing a bunch of questions at once. But
no, go ahead. I can handle it.
Why would a bureau take somebody? I'm sure you get calls all day long.
All day, yeah. So does a speaker need an agent? Why do they? When you're really starting out, I don't think you do. I think it's just like anything else where you're opening up your own lemonade stand. You're the only employee. You don't suddenly need a manager of your lemonade stand. No one's coming, right? You don't need a manager until you have too much to manage. That's kind of the simplest way I could put it. And I think there's the kind of other side of the coin. It's like, well, I want to look fancy and I want to look represented, and that's going to give me some gravitas. That's going to give me, it's like the fake it till you make it kind of strategy. And that holds water too, right? There are some, if you want, you can just go also and ask a bunch of bureaus to list you non-exclusively on their website. And then if people are asking about you, you can send a link to them, be like, well, here's my agency, and you don't have to go with one. You can kind of, try out a few and see what teams you kind of like working with. But I think ultimately, and I've said this a lot, and it still holds true, and I think it might come as like a disappointment sometimes to speakers who are just starting out. It's weird. I don't think it's a speaker agent's job to book you events. I know that sounds crazy. It's like, yes, it is. No, it's not. My job as a speaker agent is to do two things. Is to one, recommend you for opportunities, and then it's up to the client to decide if they book you, which, by the way, is up to you, speaker, to be bookable. It's not my job to like pull a very big rabbit out of a very small hat. and be like, I did it, like it's showbiz. Here's your big money offer. Like it just doesn't happen. But I think an agent's job is, a good agent's job can flesh out and capitalize on a speaker's momentum and make it bigger, better, faster, stronger of something that's already successfully happening. And this model happens, by the way, across all forms of entertainment, right? Like in music, for example, people aren't really getting discovered in a karaoke bar. Like some guy doesn't come up and is like, hey, I hope you like money because your voice is fantastic and I'm going to take it from here. Like that doesn't happen. It's not the 90s, right? That's over. You have to come with an audience that is clamoring for you. You're selling tickets, you're selling merch, you're doing all these things. Then people are interested in working with you because they want to get in on the action. So you have to make yourself appealing to a bureau agent of like, why should I work with you, right? So I think my short answer is I don't think you need an agent at the start. I think having an agency or a team, if you're going like the non-exclusive model and you have a few sturdy relationships that you kind of work off, that can expand your business and put out more fishing poles to get more fish, especially starting out. I don't find it to be that effective. The second question was, how do you get signed by someone like once you're ready for that moment?
Once you're ready. Because I know, like bureaus, you must get called all the time. Hey, would you put me on your site? Would you put me on your site?
Yeah.
What would make Gotham or any other agency interested in putting another speaker on their site?
Yeah. So everybody wants to know, what are you going to do for me? And the easiest thing that a speaker can do to get a bureau agent's attention is to give them a lead. That's all you got to do. And to get a lead, you have to have people asking about you, right? It's like if you get an incoming inquiry from some huge company or even a medium small, someone's like, hey, how much do you for my event? Instead of answering the email yourself, here's your chance, speaker, to give a shot to a bureau agent. Say, hey, I just got this inquiry. Do you want to handle it for me? Quote whatever you think is fit. We'll work out a gross commission structure of like whatever's fair, but like if you want to handle it, go for it. This is good for both parties, in my opinion. It's good for the speaker because it's better to have someone else ask for money for you than for you to ask money for you. I can tell you how many people I know, Hollywood celebrities included, who at the start of their career, even honestly, I think later in their career, for like some idiosyncratic people, they made a fake email address and pretended to be their own assistant or their own manager. And they'd give themselves like a zippy name, that's like really flashy in Hollywood, and negotiate their own deal. And then, but it was them, right? So there is something to the optics of having a big, strong agent, manager, whoever, negotiate something for your behalf that looks cooler. It makes you seem expensive and hard to get, and you might get a better deal out of it. So you could literally do it yourself if you want to, make up a Gmail address and just go to town. But if you want to ingratiate yourself to a bureau, and you do, because people trust bureaus to make recommendations. And if you're a trusted recommendation, you have a better shot at getting booked, plain and simple, right? So give bureaus a lead. And we know how to get leads. You have to, have some sort of heat, some gravity, some things coming towards you. Then you're ready to start engaging bureaus. And once you want that, give them a free lead. Say, look, I'm going to forward you every single lead I get for 3 months, right? And then, in kind, pitch me for people that I don't have access to, that you're working with. And it's kind of a give and take, right? You have to kind of scratch each other's backs. And in this way, I'm thinking about people that are sending me free leads, quote unquote, right? Of people, because even if I don't book a speaker with that person, as a bureau agent, selfishly, here's a new contact for me. Their conference, they didn't want this speaker, or it didn't work out for whatever reason. The speaker wasn't available, or the budget wasn't right. But now, I'm a bureau agent. Well, here's a new person I get to reach out to forevermore to try to book their conference. So I'm grateful to the speaker for doing that for me. I'll remember you. And when a bureau agent remembers you and you're kind of in their mind, that's good for you, speaker. They're going to be pitching you, putting you out for opportunities that you didn't even know existed. So I wouldn't get territorial about your leads coming in, but like, well, this came to me. They wanted me. Why am I giving some bureau agent 20% commission to do what? That's kind of the point. You're giving them free money so they remember you, so that they bring you other offers that you did nothing for.
You bring up such a good point. Why would I want to have an agent? Because they take my money. But in fact, you could ask any of my speakers, because they work with me, they've gotten a higher rate than they used to get by themselves, right? So what they're paying me, it's just like the gravy. They're getting more than they have in
Yeah,
the past anyway.
correct. And you've paid for
So
yourself many
yeah,
times over by getting them, it's
by
like,
getting
okay,
them
yeah,
gigs, right?
for the first five, yeah, Lee got like an easy layup because of these things, but the next 20 you generated, because
Right.
of the goodwill generate, kind of in this early stage is so important. And I think people just need, it's like, I operate from a culture of abundance. There's always more money out there. There's always more things to kind of go after. So I try not to sweat the small stuff and try to nickel and dime on my way to the top. It's like, we're all going to get to paradise. It's just going to take time. So everyone relax. That's my philosophy.
It is a long game. If anybody goes back to
Yeah.
the very first podcast I did, it said it's a long game, right? There's no
Yeah.
overnight as a speaker takes years to be an overnight
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen immediately, and I think speakers sometimes
That's
forget
a great
that.
soundbite. Yeah.
Oh, you like that one, right?
I do. Yeah.
It's because also think about this. Events often are annual things for companies. So while you might get in front of a person right now who says, "Oh my gosh, I do all the hiring for our event," yeah, but their event's not till next January. So
Yeah.
even if they love you, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's a long game. It's
100%
a
true.
long play. This industry. So
Yeah. I'm already booking events for fall 2026, by the way. Just
wow,
goes to
yeah.
show the sales cycle is long. You just got to be ready to be patient and sit with it.
It is. And another thing for, again, emerging speakers to remember is another reason to work with bureaus. There are clients that you can't get in front of because they only
Correct.
use bureaus,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I know there's certain ones I've placed my speakers with, and I know very well that that company will always be with that bureau. They contract with them year after year. They get their speakers from them
Yep.
year after year. So I want to stay in tight with that bureau because they're not suddenly going to break form and go after an individual speaker.
They will not. Yeah.
They will not, right? I've had companies
Yeah.
tell me this. So they say, look,
Yeah.
even if it's one of my speakers, they'll say, we'd love your speaker. However, we want to work with a big bureau because if your speaker breaks a leg, they can get me somebody immediately. They can fill the spot, right? It's insurance.
There's insurance there. Exactly. Yep.
So important
100%.
for speakers to remember that you might want to do everything yourself, but there's a reason some clients only
To a
work with
point.
bureaus.
Yeah. There's at least some big tech companies that I work with. It's not even the insurance aspect. A lot of it is lazy bureaucracy aspect. They're like, we literally can't add any more vendors to our system, so we can only work with these people. It's
Yes.
way too complicated. I just don't feel like it. And you're like, okay. So there's some just practical things where like, it's too complicated to add new payment systems. So I just have to book you through somebody else. Sorry. That's how it is.
Yeah, but again, something for new speakers to realize, there is a vendor process. There's a legal process, right? They get a hold of the contract that goes to their law department. If it's something you haven't dealt with before, you just let the
Don't
big
start.
guys just don't start.
Let someone else do it. Yeah, worry about getting better at speaking. Don't worry about like, oh man, how do I negotiate this force majeure clause? You're like, that sounds boring and hard. Don't do that. Let someone else do it.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
I want to wrap up with this, Ben. If you could, so and you've, as a performer, as somebody who's been around this industry for well over a decade now, what is something that you've learned now that you would tell your old self about the industry, that you'd say when they started out, like, this is something I wish I had known that I only learned through mileage?
Yeah. I think the thing that's come into mind for me is like, I think advice that might not apply at like the very, very beginning, but I wish I learned it sooner than I did. And I think it's the idea that you can get more by saying no. And this happens in a lot of different ways. It can happen very practically. And like, if you pass on an offer, they'll come back with more. And because you said no, you now make more money. And sure, that's all well and good. But when I was first starting out, I had like no boundaries and like no work-life balance. I was like so hungry to make it. So I was glued to my phone all the time. And I think my like quality of life then, I was just stressed out and anxious. And look, I got to where I wanted to go. And so hooray. But I don't want to necessarily vouch for the pathway. It's like, I think everyone is very obsessed about being extra connected and getting responses back immediately on things. And I honestly find myself, I tend to have more successful events with people that like have pretty strong boundaries about when and how they communicate and how fast they get back if it's off hours or something. Look, if it's the day before an event and something happens, yeah, like you gotta kind of make some stuff happen. But I think to not get it twisted that you're like, it's only about the fastest horse in the race will get the carrot, or whatever metaphor that you want to use. Because if we're thinking about this as a marathon, you're the one that has to be running, right? Like if you burn yourself out by trying to run too fast, working too many hours, not seeing friends and family and taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to have a career for 20 plus years. Which if that's your goal, it's like, allow yourself the quiet and the separation to live your own life. Please have hobbies. Please have a creative outlet that's not speaking. And like, whether it's like your family or an art form or like whatever it happens to be, something that's going to, recharge you, that will then make you that much better and more effective when you are on the clock. I think that's a super important thing, because it's just like the entrepreneur mindset of, I didn't sleep, I worked 80-hour weeks and I had toast and butter and that was my only food, and now I built this huge company. It's like, okay, that worked for that person, but there's a lot of other successful people that didn't have to do that to themselves, and it's like, I don't know, we only have, so much time on this earth, and yes, it's important to make a living, and everyone wants to make a good one. Everyone wants to, to rise through the ranks and make a bunch of money and all that stuff. But like, what I started to realize now, 13 years into it, is like, at what cost, right? Don't you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor? Don't forget that.
I love it. So we're going to leave that with everybody with the power of no, and oh my goodness, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
So speaking,
and a power of a positive no too. It's like, I think that's a book actually. Yeah. You can say no in a way that invites people to keep working with you. And I think that's the most important thing is saying no nicely. That's kind of like a very secret sauce thing that we probably, need a whole other podcast to get into, but maybe that's for next time.
I think that will be. Next time is going to be how to say no nicely. All
there
right.
you go. The nice no. Yeah. Thanks, Lee.
The nice no. That's your next book. I think you need to write that
there
book.
You go.
The nice no.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you had a great job or great time on this podcast. I think there was a lot of information here, and we'll see you next time on Path to the Main Stage.
Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com, where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.